Social stereotypes can portray menopause as an ending, leaving women depleted and sobbing in the corner lamenting their glory days. In this video, I'll use my medical background to get you really clear on what the term post-menopause means, and my coaching experience to help you start shifting your mindset around this phase of life. What if this is the beginning of your most powerful chapter? Hi, I'm Ruth, retired doctor turned health coach, and this is Wise Women's Wellbeing, where we follow the science on health, well-being and mindset. Coming up, we'll run through the biology and history of the menopause, followed by some reframing of those societal stereotypes. Let's start by diving straight into the biology. A woman's life has 3 stages separated by puberty and the menopause. When we are born, our ovaries contain all the eggs they'll ever release. At puberty, the hypothalamus, that's the brain's control and command centre, releases a hormone that triggers the release of FSH and LH, the sex hormones, from the pituitary gland. They stimulate the ovaries to increase in size and start releasing estrogen. The eggs or follicles mature and one is released roughly every 28 days and thus begins periods and puberty. And cue the mood swings, interesting fashion choices and upsetting your mum by getting your nose pierced with a gun at the local hairdressers. Or was that just me? Puberty marks a seismic transition in a woman's life, and we get another big shift at the menopause. Menopause is defined as the end of ovarian function with the associated hormone changes. Levels of estrogen and progesterone fluctuate in the perimenopause, and at menopause they drop and stay low. Women produce testosterone too, but that declines more gradually from the 20s or 30s onwards. In terms of semantics, perimenopause is the years before the menopause, and menopause marks the last period we have. It's defined a year later, so 1 year after our last period, and everything after that is the postmenopause. The drop in estrogen influences other hormones including insulin and cortisol, and in the long term this can lead to a host of body issues, including a loss of bone density, mood and sleep changes, an increased risk of heart disease, vaginal dryness and bladder irritation, so-called genitourinary symptoms. Menopause marks the end of our potentially fertile years, and for many that in itself can be traumatic. Now I know I'm not selling it as an opportunity, but bear with me. And after we consider what happens, a question arises. Well, why? Why did nature make us this way? Unlike most other mammals, human females live well beyond our potentially reproductive years. As an aside, there are a few species of whales which have a postmenopause too. Anthropologists and biologists have pondered this question. At some point in our evolution, losing the ability to reproduce in later life became an advantage. So what was it? One theory, called the grandmother hypothesis, suggests that older women played an important role in looking after our descendants and the community, and this gave us a distinct advantage. So more infants surviving was good for the species. And talking of older females, can you hear my elderly cat? She's singing. And while biologists continue to debate this evolutionary puzzle, what's undeniable is how our relationship with this life phase has changed through history. As our lifespans have extended, the postmenopausal chapter of a woman's life has grown too. At the time of Elizabeth I, a woman's life expectancy was around 40, and childbirth was a perilous pursuit. Fast forward to Queen Victoria, and women were living until about 45, 50. Today, the average life expectancy for a woman in the UK is 81, and the average age for the menopause is 51. So that's 30 years lived in this chapter of life. Now, throughout history, the ageing female body has been viewed as redundant. The hag, the crone, Macbeth's witches cackling around our cauldron, wrinkled and wizened. And some of these stereotypes still persist. Older women can start to feel invisible, overlooked in the media and the workplace. Ageing has a gender bias. Just look how older men are viewed as distinguished silver foxes, but woe betide we show our grey hair. And there's a literal $1 million industry out there encouraging us to reclaim the body and face of our youth. And this is natural, by the way. I've just got lucky genetics. And this brings us to perhaps the most important question. How can we redefine and reclaim this significant portion of our lives? Despite some lingering stereotypes, many over 50s women are refusing to fade into invisibility and discovering that the post-menopause gives us some distinct advantages. We have the wisdom and experience gained just from simply existing. We've lived longer on this earth, and that brings with it lessons, both personal and professional. There is also a certain freedom that derives from that exact moment when you realise that you no longer give a damn what the haters think, and that gives us confidence, resilience, and more than a little sass. As a woman, our worth is not defined by our ability or our desire to reproduce, and in my opinion, menopause is not an ending, but rather it is a powerful new beginning. This third phase of life is when many women choose to step into leadership roles, embracing entrepreneurship, freedom, travel and creativity. With our personal and professional experience, we bring something unique to the table. Don't just take my word for it. This report of small business trends in the US in 2024 shows Gen X makes up the largest proportion of female business owners. And of course, we continue to have our responsibilities, specifically as our own parents age, and for those of us who have them, children and grandchildren, but it still represents an opportunity, a chance to stop and think about how you want to shape your new chapter. And for many women, this involves finally taking the time to think about future-proofing their health. A time to think about eating well, moving your body and looking after your mental health. And of course, there is a delicious freedom from never having another period. So my challenge to you after this video is to take a piece of paper or a journal and make a plan and ask yourself, what is my vision for the next 5 years? What would I like to achieve in terms of my well-being, my interests or my purpose? Try to think about it in 3 stages. What do I want? Why do I want it? And what benefits will it bring me? Or think of it another way. If future you could get in a time machine and come and meet present you, what would they tell you about their life? How would it look different? So take a pen and be bold and write it all down, because that, ladies, is the start of a plan. And once we know the destination, we can start to plan the route. Honestly, it's a really powerful coaching exercise, so give it a go. So to conclude, we've run through what the post-menopause is and why it matters. In recent history, we've had what I consider a much needed reframe around a life lived freed from the constraints of youth, a time for passions and a life lived authentically. And if you found this video in any way helpful, I would be really grateful if you could give it the thumbs up, and even more grateful if you would consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss any of my future content. And if you'd like some more down-to-earth tips on dealing with some frustrating menopause symptoms, I'll put the video here, and I'll see you in the next one.